Today we're going to talk about how to solder copper. Probably one of the most economical options for repairing a copper water line. A lot of plumbers have press tools. We have press tools here, but honestly, most repairs are pretty simple. I don't recommend this if you aren't comfortable with it. You know, you could cause some significant damage to your home, like a fire or something. If you're in a wide open area, you could probably do it. But in a pinch, if you can't afford to call a plumber and you are handy and you feel comfortable with it, this video should help you. So let's get into it. Here we got solder. This is Bridget solder. It's lead free. We're going to be using that today. We've got flux. Got a flux brush, fitting cleaner, and some emery cloth. I'll get into all that. I'm just going to tear off a little piece because we don't really need much. Sandpaper works too. So I recommend just leaving your solder on the roll. One thing I like to do is put a little bend on it, especially if you're working in a wall. It's easier to kind of just get in there. It's kind of hooked already. You're going to need a reamer and you're going to need a cutter. These are all basic things that you can get at your local hardware store. What we're going to do here, we're going to cut this copper. Let's say we need a piece that's 3 inches long. I'm going to put that tape measure up there. What I can see is I usually go off the numbers of the pipe. Looks like 3 inches right about at the start of the end here on the pipe. So I know that 3 inches right about there. Put it in there, tighten it. Just go snug, one rotation, snug it up a little bit, another rotation, snug it up, another rotation. What you're gonna see here is that it's kind of flaring the pipe inward, or I guess you could call it belling the pipe. Smashing it is what it's doing. So now that you've got this end, you can kind of see how it's a lot thicker on that end versus this end. That's where this comes into play. Put that reamer inside there, open it back up. Very important step. Be careful, it is sharp. All right, so now that we got it reamed out, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the emery cloth, we're gonna clean the side of the pipe. So this is the OD flux. It's pretty common. Me personally, I've used OD flux for a long time. Another thing you can do, you can actually use this emery paper inside the fitting too, instead of those fitting brushes. The fitting brushes work great, but if you don't have them, it's not end all be all. Once I have the fitting brush, I use it on this. It's a 3/4 line. Generally, you're going to be messing with this. You're working on a water heater or something of that nature. Smaller lines are just what's like feeding your kitchen sink, your bathtub, your toilet. You probably have a combination of both of these sizes in your home. Take the flux. You're going to heat it up. Get a slight green tint on the back side there. I don't know if you saw that. Get a nice draw and it pulls itself around. The last thing you want to do is take like a wet rag and quench it. If you feel the need to wipe it off, you can do so. I think your fitting stays a lot cleaner if you don't. That's kind of the product you're gonna get, solid fitting. And let's say you wanna solder up another piece going into that 1/2 inch port. It's the same sort of thing, using this OD flux, older container, but we just put a hole in the top so we just dip our brush in there and stuff doesn't go bad. It's great. So, let me get this up in there. Be careful because it is hot. And I had already cleaned that that piece of pipe. So see if you can see that green flame on that back side again. See how it's turning green there? We can take the heat off of it. It's good to go. That joint's done. You see what? I don't have to take the solder all the way around. I can just dap it on there and it pulls itself in. It's really nice. Soldering isn't as hard as what people make it out to be. Press is certainly a lot easier, pro press, but I think soldering still has a place and will always have a place. It holds up a lot better. You're not dependent on gaskets and whatnot. You know, you got a nice good seal with this solder. And overall, I just feel like it's more reliable, but it certainly takes a lot longer. I think every plumber that comes into the trade needs to know how to solder for specific reasons, like when you're in a tight spot and the press won't work, or if you're in a pinch, you're out at, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning on an emergency call, which we don't do emergencies here, but you know, the emergency plumbers that are out there doing that, you know, they need to be able to solder in a pinch, because they're not going to necessarily have every fitting, and they might have a fitting they could solder, but they don't know how to do it. It's not good. Once again, we're going to be looking for that little bit of green. So that flame's kind of turning green there. Notice how I'm putting it in up top, but it's dripping off the bottom. That's because it's pulling around. You can take a little bit of flux. This won't hurt it. You can do that. Make sure to wipe it off when you're done. There you go. That's how you solder the right way and effectively. It's not super hard. All you need is this raw solder, some flux, a torch, a reamer, a pair of cutters, and some emery paper. I mean, it's kind of a lot of stuff, but if you don't want to call a plumber, you could invest in this. I'd say you could probably get yourself a basic setup for around $100. Then you still got to buy your parts and your time. A repair like this from us, let's say we just got to put a coupling on and repair it, you'd be looking at a few $100s to do something like that. But like I said, it's relatively easy to do once you've learned how to do it. If you know, you're running into copper pipe problems or something, you're in our area, feel free to give us a shout. We'd be happy to help.